Welcome back to part 2, 150 experiments on the call to action. Can you imagine what you could learn if you ran 150 scientific experiments carefully monitored for multiple types of validity threats? If you did meta-analysis and studied patterns, we went through over, I think it was 750 pages of data. We went through all of these experiments and pulled out something vital. I'm teaching the second part. If you missed part 1, you can look here on the channel and find the first part and go through it. But if you are watching part 2 for the second time, it teaches independently. You can learn right now. Let's go to an experiment. This experiment is interesting to me. First of all, because the page is ugly. We've been testing all over the world, many languages in Asia, and we find in Asia, there's a much busier page that often works. This page is ugly, and it does something most of us do. It has a classic upsell in the cart. So that's the control. In the treatment, we no longer upsell. We don't try to get you to buy anything else. We do something counterintuitive. We actually use the space to address specific concerns that might trouble the prospective customer. Remember, as you've heard me say many times, this isn't a page, it's a signal set. We're cueing something in the mind. In the control, we have got you to say yes to a group of items. So now we're trying to get you to say yes to additional items. But what do we really want? We want more revenue per customer. So if you look at the control and the treatment side by side, and you would probably expect that the treatment, barring the fact that you're learning from an experiment right now, and you're probably wondering, so what's the catch? Well, the catch is pretty straightforward. We stopped talking about buying more. We didn't do any upsell. And we drove revenue up by a significant percentage. You say, well, what percentage is that? Well, I'm going to show that to you as this unfolds, so stay tuned. And we talk about what was going on here in the cognitive dissonance that allowed us to take out all the upsells, address anxiety, and drive more revenue. I mean, a 5% improvement. Can you imagine if you just got every customer to spend 5% more with you? 5% would be important. Let's see what happens. Let's watch it unfold. But let me take you, first of all, to the 4th dangerous psychological condition. We call it elemental paralysis. Like a doctor, we're going to define it, and we're going to tell you how to treat it. But let's start with the definitions. A state of confusion that halts the momentum. The prospect doesn't move forward because they're trying to sort out competing CTAs. Now, this connects very closely to the example we began with, but let's keep going. What's the root cause? It's commonly caused by the marketer's inability to see themselves and be able to explain the difference between one or more asks. In fact, what happens so often is the case that our web pages become real estate fiefdoms, and we are warring factions trying to get our little piece. Someone said a camel is a horse put together by a committee. Most of our web pages feel like camels. And so how do you keep someone from being confused by the confusion we have inside of our own organization? Well, here's some of the symptoms. Here's some of the signs you may be experiencing this in your CTA. And as I share these with you, I just want to point out that of all the things we teach, nothing is more actionable than what you're learning last week and this week. I mean, within a moment, you can go back, change something on a page, and see a dramatic increase. So tune in. I'm going to show you actual examples, and you'll be able to take those examples and think about what you're doing and say to yourself, so how can I shape my CTA differently and produce better results? Here's one of the signs. When there's 2 or more similar CTAs on the same page, beware, that could be so dangerous. When there are 2 or more primary customer profiles coming to the page and you're trying to talk to both of them at the same time. I once worked with a site that wanted to recruit dentists to pay for leads, and it also wanted to recruit people to participate in the program and have a recommended dentist. Now ask yourself a question. If you go to a page that's purporting to help you make the best decision and find the best dentist in your area, and on the same page, you're appealing to dentists to buy leads from you, what message do you think you're sending to the actual prospective dental patient? That this isn't about a recommendation, it's about advertising, selling leads, that the dentist they recommend is just the one that pays the most. That's the kind of danger that we often miss because we're too busy brokering the wars between different divisions of our organization, and we don't realize that the victim turns out to be the actual customer. So, how distinct is the CTA between these? Let's take a look at this page. Students submitted this. We've worked with Humana on testing. Take a look and you see go and find a plan. I wonder what go means. Do you know what go means? Are you prepared to go before you know what it means? What's going to happen when you put this information in? Why do you have to have my zip code? Are you going to target me in ways I don't understand? I'm now experiencing anxiety and also friction, and you're doing nothing to relieve it. And then find the right Medicare plan for your needs. How does that call to action compare with this one? Is that step one? Because I can't tell if it's step one. So let's look at some examples of how to solve for this nonsense. Aligning each path to distinctly separate customer interests. Some pages shouldn't even have the same, like the one with the dentist shouldn't have the dentist and the patient coming to the same page, period. Under any circumstances, forget it. But in some cases, we can help people sort themselves out if we give them clarity. In this case, this is a medical facility that handles spinal injuries, and we're not showing the page. These are just, and we've turned the images black and white to keep this dead simple. And we've grayed out the name, and we've done all that, and a couple of the images because we're protecting the brand. But I want you to see the fundamental difference. To the customer, these three calls to action are difficult to understand. Are you a candidate? And then news, and then research. We changed that to take our chronic, and it's about back pain questionnaire, compare treatment options, and learn about our long-term, patient care solutions, something like that. The difference in the bottom is that it becomes very easy for me to zero in on what matters to me at the moment. And instead of hitting me with, 3 boxes and a thing like news and a generic, vague piece like research, this is lazy thinking and it produces mitigated results. But how big a difference does it make if you get people clarity? See, listen, you may not hear anything else I ever say again. So why don't you give me 3 minutes of your energy and focus on this. Of all the problems I see when I study the failed psychology of our offer pages, the most common is also the easiest to correct. Think about what I just said. Because if it's the most common, then why is it, it just doesn't make sense. If it's so easy to correct, why is it so common? I don't have the answer. I think our blind spot, our self-interest, our deadlines, and our rush keep us from seeing the pages the way other people see it. In this approach, we did not do a deep data analysis. Listen to me, I'm all about the data. Data is just behavioral traces, but I'm also suspicious of marketers who are constantly stalling until they get more data. I didn't need any data to fix this, just the test data afterwards. We don't need the data. We didn't need to hire a brilliant designer. We didn't need a brilliant copywriter. We didn't need development to come in and create a whole new process. We ourselves, the marketer, could make a simple change and have a bigger impact than had we done all of that. Because without clarity, you'll never be believed. And if they don't believe you, nothing else you say matters. If they don't understand, they can't believe. If they understand but they don't believe, you're still at zero. But if they don't understand, they'll never believe and you'll never get a customer. I'm stressing this because a simple change produced a 331% increase in conversion. That is not an exaggerated number, nor is that a number which I often see in tests where we ran a test, it looked good, we shut it off. That had to be certified by a team of scientists who are experts in this. We've ran 20,000 of these experiments. That's a real number. And the takeaway you should get is not the MECLABS scientists are smart, not that wow, if I can just get the words perfect, the magical words, I'll be able to drive more revenue. No, the takeaway from this is that clarity is possible for every marketer, whether you consider yourself a copywriter or not. And this simple improvement that comes from clarity often has a remarkably higher impact than you expect on ultimate conversion. This is a problem you can fix. And one of the problems right now with our buttons and our calls to action is they create confusion. See, people are absorbing your page like a story. And as they absorb it like a story, they are, when they're trying to make certain they're understanding where things are going, they skip ahead and read the last chapter. What's the last chapter in your story? From a practical standpoint, for most of us, it's the CTA. This is why you'll see some people, when they don't understand a page, scrolling down to find the CTA so they can understand the first of 3 questions or the second of 3 questions. What can I do here? What is it you want me to do? Until I see the CTA, sometimes I can't even sort out what you're doing on the page. When I arrive on your page, I have 3 questions. Where am I? Am I in the right place? And if I'm not sure of that, I just terminate your existence with a single click. The second question is, what can I do here? And the third is, why should I do it? You've heard me teach this, but many of you are new and you're not seeing this. So where? That is, am I in the right place? What? That is, what can I do here? And that is, why? And this is everything else. This is what the rest of the page is about. Why should I do it? That's your value proposition. That is the argument of your value proposition articulately presented as an ultimate reason. So let's move on. One way to treat the problem is align each path to distinctly separate customer interest. That's their interest. Another is to do the same thing with very specific prospect-focused products. Remember, there's 4 kinds of value propositions, and there's product and prospect level value propositions. And by doing this, you help create clarity. From this, 3 columns. See, 3 calls to action to this. What's going on here? Well, a lot more than you can tell from looking at the design, because we know that the actual revenue increase was 63%. Now that's an increase in revenue per visit. Do you think about that? Wow. What retailer right now in the brick and mortar world wouldn't love to see 63% more money come from each person that walked through the door? That's what we're talking about right here. And that happened because we brought clarity. Treatment 3, aligning each path to distinctly separate steps in a process, making it really clear that there are 3 steps, like join a webinar, try a real-time demo, open a live account. I don't like the horizontal presentation. I don't like it without the numbers. But the 3 easy ways to get started, I like that. And the difference is more people get through this bottleneck. 35% more get through it because they have greater clarity about where they're going. Marketers, in your role, because you are the customer philosopher of your organization, you must keep management from gaining internal clarity at the expense of external clarity. I often see management organize the page in a way that's pleasing to the company, but it means nothing to the customer. It's dangerous to succumb to the illusion that the prospect sees our company the way we see it. They do not. They do not know what we know about the company. And it is incumbent on us to over-communicate with clarity. So then, I've taught 2 points, and I have another diagnostic for you. Compositional paralysis and elemental paralysis, 2 forms of paralysis that slow people down in their buying momentum. This is a checklist to help you think it through. Again, we'll try to make it available on the page and a download for you. I'm moving on. I have 2 more conditions. Terminal anxiety. What is that? A state of impending decision reversal or hesitation because you haven't actually addressed some of the more fundamental, most important questions they have. Root cause of that, where do you see that? It's commonly caused by underestimating the concern or last-minute fears of the customer. And so here's some signs you may be having this ailment on your page. When the CTA requires information through a form, be careful. When the CTA is closer to the macro yes of the offer, when the CTA lacks nearby credibility indicators, strategically placed right there on the page, right at the moment of concern. Let's look at examples. Order your free book today. What concerns are left unaddressed for the CTA? Order free book. Somebody tell me. In fact, I'm not live, but you can still think, what's missing? What am I worried what's going to happen when I fill out that form and click that red button? Are you going to spam me? Are you going to protect my privacy? Is this salesperson going to bother me selling me other things? Is this just a bait and switch? I could just go on and on. But the top 5 concerns need to be addressed on this page, or you are leaving money on the table. So how do you fix such things? Well, overcorrecting for any last-minute specific concerns. Here's an example. Test protocol 1070, national computer hardware, multimedia retailer with significant online presence. The goal is to increase total cart conversions and revenue per conversion. Oh, wait a second. You mean this ugly page belonged to a big retailer? Yes, a national retailer. You'd know their name instantly. And yes, this was the upsell in the cart. And as you know, we took the upsell out and reassured the customer. Now, what's worth more, that reassurance or that opportunity to buy more? Well, I can tell you exactly what's worth more and by how much. 11.6% increase in revenue per cart or conversion. When we took the upsell out, it doesn't even make sense. They can't buy as much, and yet they're buying more. We didn't even give them the offer, and they're buying more. Why? Because more people are buying. And the people that are buying have more confidence because we addressed it. You say, well, what's that worth? About $53 million in annual revenue for this organization. 53, let me say that again, $53 million. I've seen that number over $1 billion. I really have. Experiments, mind-blowing experiments. But $53 million, wait a second, like we made $53 million by taking the upsell out of the cart at this point? Yes. Because there's something that comes way more important than your right to shove offers in front of people. And it's their right to understand with clarity what they're really getting. Keep it in mind, and let's go to another way to treat this. Addressing customer questions or concerns in close proximity to the call to action. Right when we ask is right when they be the moment when their concern intensifies. And when that happens, we need to address it. Their add to cart pop-up summarizes their action with essential product information. This pop-up, however, re-emphasizes a money-back guarantee presented earlier in the process. And anybody that's been in my intensives and classes, and if you haven't, we have a small research base. We're a full research institute, but we do a lot of teaching and research. And we actually come and help you solve a business problem and use this to expand our learning and our research and our understanding, et cetera. We actually spent $138 million on the research program. And I share that with you to say that whenever I'm teaching, I often ask, see that seal right there? Do you know what it takes to get that seal, that beautiful gold seal with the red ribbon and all the remarkable design? It takes Photoshop. Now, if you're wondering what I just said, or if you're laughing already, you get it. It doesn't take any special award. You don't have to win something, qualify for something. You don't have to go through an application process. You just have to use Photoshop to say what you were trying to say and say it better with visual emphasis. That's all it's doing. It's completely honest. If that's a real guarantee, and if you really give it back, and if it's really 1 year, and if nothing on it's wrong, then well done. Good for you. In this case, that guarantee produces 37% increase in conversion. You'd be hard put to spend your design dollars more effectively. Okay? Let's keep going. So we're moving into that final point here in just a moment, but look, from this to this. And then you can see that there is a evidential place at the bottom and a 35% increase in conversion. And I'll finish this point by another quote. Anxiety is the emotional cost of risk. Did you hear that? It's the emotional cost of risk. And often this cost outweighs the rational expectation of the marketer. Far, far outweighs the rational thinking. Anxiety cannot be corrected with a rational measure. You have to assault the source of anxiety with a full-on barrage of credible counters. It takes more. If you're not clear on that, just ask yourself, have you ever had a friend who had problems with anxiety? Did giving them a rational explanation solve the problem? I bet it didn't. I'll bet it didn't. I spent this weekend trying to help a friend with enormous anxiety. And the one thing that was clear, we weren't going to get to where we needed to go by me sitting down and spelling out logically why they shouldn't be afraid. So we've got to think about that. And finally, in our sixth dangerous condition, transitional vertigo. What is it? Well, it's a fancy word. It's a state of mismatched expectations. That's why the vertigo, they're off balance. It's a disconnect in the messaging of the CTA from what came before it. And in fact, it's commonly caused by focusing too much on one step and ignoring the overall path, and we lose sight of where we're at in the mind. Here's some signs, some symptoms. You may be experiencing this in your own pages. When the CTA does not logically connect with a headline of the subsequent page or the same page at the top. Did you hear that? Very important. When the CTA fails to set proper expectation of what's going to happen after they click. That's really important. When the customer cannot gain clarity with 7 seconds. If they click on there and they don't know where they're at and the next 7 seconds aren't crystal clear, you're in danger of losing the gain that you thought you had. So, is this expectation produced by the CTA? Is it met on the subsequent page? No, because you thought you were checking out and now you're logging in or registering to create an account. This is suicide. This is devastating. If you have this in your e-commerce, anywhere, get it out. It can come afterwards, but it shouldn't come before. It's costing you far too much if it is. However, if you're razor sharp and you heard me last week, you may be thinking, yeah, is that true always? No, nothing I'm saying is true always. Human nature is consistent, but application needs to be tested. Nevertheless, I can say in hundreds of tests, when I moved the login to after the purchase, we saw conversion increases. All right, treatment 1, changing the destination URL to a page that aligns more closely to the substance of the previous ask. When I say treatment, this is like a medical treatment. So change the destination URL to a page that aligns most closely to the substance of the previous ask. Like, do you see all this from this to this? We didn't need those pieces in between. But you know what we did need? And if you stayed with me this long, and if you hit subscribe, or you hit like, or you're sharing with a friend, I will give you the bonus, because here's what we did want. We wanted a 533% increase in conversion. Who wouldn't? We got it not by doing anything but removing. Really important. Let's do philosophy. Let's do physics for 1 minute. Ready? 1 minute physics class. There are 3 things you can do to make a page better. Are you ready? Here they are. All you could ever do is add something, remove something, or change something. What do we do here? We remove. That's the easiest thing of all to do. What do we get? Ridiculous result. Because we got out of our own way. Not this. Wait a second. What happened here? We just took out 1 step, but we also gained 30% almost. Number 2, changing the subsequent page copy to better align with the substance of the previous ask. That's really important. And I could show you an example. I had one here, the case study is 97% increase, but we're out of time. And all that we did was make sure that we aligned the copy and the CTA. You can either change the CTA or you can change the copy, but get them saying the same thing. Make the CTA the climax of an inevitable conclusion. Remember what's going on here. You're controlling people's conclusions. You're not making claims. They don't believe your claims. You're fostering a conclusion in their mind, their conclusion. They own it. They'll defend it. They'll fight for it because it's theirs. It's not yours. It's theirs. By the way, that's where brand derives its power. The brand derives its power from expectation, not from promises. And the expectation comes from a conclusion about the brand based on the aggregate experience of the value proposition. I leave you with this quote, confusion impedes progress. And on the web, people resolve confusion not with effort, but with regress. We solve our confusion the way we really can in life. We just click a little button and the problem disappears and we go back to where we started. What's happened in the last 100 years is staggering. And along with all the progress is this new power that we've given to people. It first happened in television. It was mind-boggling. People hated the remote when it first came out because when you no longer had to get up, I am old enough to remember when you had to get up to change the dials. And it was a dial. It wasn't digital. You had to turn it. Then we came along with this magnificent invention. And it's like evolution in reverse. I mean, for the average marketer, it was just death and destruction. Because with a single click, I can terminate every opportunity you will ever have to engage in my life. Now, I mentioned one session ago. If you didn't see the previous session, look at the one I taught last week or the last time I taught. I taught the first 3 points. And I told how I met my wife. And when we dated for 1 year, 1 week, and 1 day. And then we got married. And I've been married 33 years. But, she was a beautiful girl. And I'm sure she had lots of guys talk to her. And I'm not trying to be, everybody's hypersensitized by political correctness. I mean this respectfully, ladies. But my point is this. What if, man or woman, what if I had one of these remotes, and when I went out on a Friday night, if somebody said something I didn't like, if they walked up to me and bothered me, I just pushed a button and they disappeared. Boom, gone. Like something from Men in Black, just boom. What a wonderful device. We could all benefit from that, but our lives would be quite different. And the reality is, in the day of television and now the internet, you're able to terminate someone's entire scope, their opportunity to ever interact with you again. So the stupidest thing you can possibly do is confuse them, because here's how we sort out confusion. We hit the back button. We resolve confusion not with effort on the internet, but with regress. Indeed, with just one click. They can terminate the conversation. And for all practical purposes, your existence. So let's work harder to be clear. Let's build calls to action that serve people instead of glorified ads. Let's transform the way we message, communicate, talk with those people who are so important to our lives and the lives of our families, our potential customers.